So, hey guys, welcome back to Devotional Beauty. We're doing something a little different today, which is a conversation with this young man right here. I'm hoping to have a bunch of conversations with a bunch of different men because I'm conversationally like that. But no, really, just wanted to try something different with content this time and maybe get some perspectives and things that, I can't bring you. So bear with us. This is our first time doing this, but we'll jump right in. So the person I have next to me is...
I am Anthony, and I am from New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in Atlanta. Spent a lot of time there.
What do you do for a living? You don't have to tell us where, but tell us what.
I am a legal drug dealer. I'm a pharmacist by trade, but cool. I'm a man of many trades. But
what's the other trades?
I'll tell you those later.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you want to tell them how we know each other?
Yeah, so let's see. We actually met through an online dating app, which is not the funnest story to tell because I always want to have like a cool hey, I saw you at the bar and I just bought you a drink. You were so cute that day. I would have did that anyway, but we just kind of sidestepped all those extra steps.
No, you bought me a drink after we met.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
A couple drinks actually.
Yeah, you did.
We had a good day that first time. But yeah, so that's how we met. So
the topic, I guess, of this conversation is going to be relationships because of our relationship.
Spicy.
Because of our relationship, I thought it would be informative and stimulating for people to sort of hear from us, what relating between black men and black women looks like. So why don't we start with tell me what your family life was like.
I grew up in a single parent household, but not in the sense of, my dad wasn't around. My dad was there. My parents were married. They had me, and then they had my brother 5 years later. And they were going through their thing, and then they ended up splitting up when I was 7. And so once they split up, my mom took me and my brother down to the South, which is how I ended up in Atlanta. And we grew up there. My dad was involved and in the picture, and we were kind of my mom and my brother, and we kind of had our tight-knit group of 3, and we did our thing for a long time, and my dad was in the picture, and we would hang out with him in the summer times and talk to him regularly and do all that good stuff, but it wasn't your traditional kind of, mother, father, kids, white picket fence kind of household, but, we made it through.
Tell me, what is love? Baby, don't ask me. What is love? No, but what is love?
That's a great song, is what that is. That's a classic song.
Okay, but what is the concept?
What is love? Yeah. What is love? Love is a complex creation of feelings, attraction, and I think selflessness, to where you are at a point where you would do whatever that person needed you to do, no matter what. And that's why you can have a love for family, you can have a love for a spouse, you can love a pet. Sometimes we love possession, which is not great, but, I say that to say that there's levels to that, but I think the ultimate form and sign of love is that on a relationship level with another person, to where you literally would do anything that you could do for that other person. So as things get shaky around here.
The cat is freaking out, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I think it's an important emotion. I think love is also action. You can show love just as much as you can express love. So it comes in multiple forms, and it's just it's like the grand melting pot of everything that makes me feel good about the other person, and it all just kind of comes together.
Okay.
Well, you have to answer that question now. What is love to you? Yes.
I think you touched on something that I really agree with. It is, I think it is. There's that chemical part of love and attraction that we feel more than anything else. Really importantly, and there's scientific studies about what that feeling is and how long it lasts chemically. But for me, love is definitely, am I willing to put this person's needs above my own? And to your point about the different contexts in which we can find love, feel love, express love. It's for family, it's for friends, it can be for your job, it could be for, you know, a pet like mine who is freaking out because we're filming right now. But yeah, like I think it definitely is, can I subjugate my will, my desires, my needs to someone else for their highest, best good. So in that sense, it's interesting and nice to know that we think the same way about that. But yeah, like I think that is a big thing, and I personally feel like I said I love you to people way too early when I was younger, and my relationships. I remember like how I felt about like a particular person, and I called that love, and then I thought about how I felt about another person, and I was like, there is no comparison between the two. There is one person not to like rehash all my like previous relationships, but for me in thinking about like what it really is, I think about what I went through, what I was willing to go through in one thing versus another thing, like where I didn't take jack off of this person, and I was like, nope, ain't him. Because I didn't love him. I might have said it and I might have gone along with it or been in a relationship for years with this person, years. And then when it was time to like end it, I walked away. And it wasn't easy to walk away per se, but it definitely was like, all right. And I don't feel like it's as easy to do that with somebody that you love, because there's so much like that you want for them. And it, you know, even though you might not physically be or even, you know, emotionally to that degree like be together, there's still so much that you want for them that you're still connected regardless. And so, you know, I haven't really done a lot of expressing that in many years as I've gotten older and you know, begun to understand, you know, like what that means. You know, I specifically think a lot about like my mom loves me, because that woman loves me. Capital all the letters, because that woman loves me, and I know that like anything I needed, she would like fall all over herself to be there for me. And while I don't think that's the kind of love that you will have for a spouse, obviously it'd be very different, but I do think that the strength of her love is something that is incomparable to anyone else's, you know, before or since. Even my dad, and I know my dad loves me, but I know my dad be like, I'm gonna let your mama get that. You know, like there's some things where your dad is like,
she got that. She
gonna take care of it. Like if you ain't got nobody else to do it, I'll do it. But let her take care of it. So and like again, you know, parental love I think is probably one of those like super high up. Like you got God's love, and then you got your parents like right there. Hopefully, you know, for all of you guys, hopefully it's like God and then your parents and stuff. But you know, like that's what I think of when I think of like the unconditional type of love. You know, I'm blessed to like have a good dad who did a good job, I think, growing up of, you know, letting me know that I, you know, was special, and who treated me with love. And I, like I said, I knew that he loved my mother. I knew my father loved my mom, and knowing that that was possible, I think is a huge benefit as a black, seeing my black father love my black mama was very instrumental in like putting in my head that a black man can love a black woman. And I think that, you know, it would be foolish of me to not acknowledge that that's a thing, because I think many women unfortunately don't get that benefit. And so I realize how privileged I am to have been able to like experience that that kind of love and witness that kind of love, experience it for myself with my father, who's still in my life. You know, that's not to say our relationship has been perfect. I'm not trying to like crap on my dad. My dad is an awesome dude, like straight up 100%. I will be honest though, I think that our relationship has been more fraught than I want it to be, and there have been some things, and I want to have that conversation with him. Hopefully he'll do these conversations with a black man thing with me, but like I want to have that conversation too, because I think, you know, from a younger woman to an older black man, like that that conversation needs to be had. I think there's so much that has been lost between his generation and ours about like what it means to love a black woman, what it means to love your daughter, etc., etc. Because do you think that unconditional love is possible in the context of romantic relationships? Like, can you have unconditional love for a spouse?
Yes and no.
I was gonna say I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think that is conditional for sure.
Things are conditional. Like if tomorrow you just decide, oh, I'm gonna just quit my job and live in a van and
sell weave out of the garage. You wouldn't support me?
I mean, I would buy some because I need to get my next fix in. But there are conditions around expecting a certain quality of life and expecting a certain type of standard of what's happening around you and what do you like and what do you don't like and
or the degree to which somebody will change.
Exactly. That's important too, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely conditions on that. So yes, in a sense of you hear stories about people who've been together 60, 70 years and everything's great and whatever. But at the same time, at least I know from how I feel about those kind of things that there's conditions that come along with this. But play your cards right, you'll be all right.
Okay. Do you think it's important? Does it matter whether or not your partner is black? And I'm asking this from more of the like 30,000 foot black person.
I think it matters nowadays just because of just the dynamics of the relationship, and there's a lot more going on than just what's going on between us in terms of public perception is a thing. People may not want to say anything about that or acknowledge that, but that's the thing. I know if me and you go out and we go have dinner somewhere or do something, I don't have to worry about people looking at me because, why are y'all together or what's going on with y'all two versus, if you are a white woman, I'm a black guy, and we're going out together.
But you're not a black guy?
I am. Surprise! No. But, I assume that I would get looks or you would get comments or, and having to deal with that dynamic of always thinking about that or always having that in the back of your mind, it's nice to know that you don't have to think about that, which sucks because you're really just doing that. I might have connected with you as a non-black woman perfectly, but I'm kind of letting the impact of what society's thoughts about us would be influence my ability to even want to pursue that. And so that sucks, but I think we all know we don't live in a post-racial world, so that's just the reality of being here in America and living under these dynamics that we have with race and everything else that goes on in this country. So does it suck? Yes, but is it a reality? Yeah. So that's kind of what I think about that.
Interesting. So do you think that we would be where we are if I were a white woman?
I don't know. What if we haven't even met? That's a great thing. So we said earlier that we met through like a dating app, right? Yeah. Even the fun thing about
wait. We only got 7.5 minutes, so you got it. You can do it. Okay, cool.
So even just thinking about like that dynamic, like when you're setting up your profiles and like who you like and who you're attracted to, like we have to put in our information about like who we want to match with. That's a selection you can make. Like you can leave that open and see what happens, or you can be like, nah, I'm gonna just narrow this down as much as I can to be as specific as I can.
What did your matches say?
I narrowed it down. So we.
So you picked. So you said black women. Interesting.
I did.
Ooh. Okay. So like, do you feel like the pool is deep enough for you to? I mean, me notwithstanding, but like, do you feel like the pool is deep enough that you can find quality people by being that selective?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we have the advantage of being in like a big metropolitan area, and there's a lot of people here. So obviously, with a lot of people comes a lot of potential opportunities if that's what you're looking for. Moving from a much smaller area to a larger area, you recognize the dynamics of what the dating scene is like, or what's out there, or who's out there that you potentially find yourself attracted to based on the standards that you have set for yourself or your type.
Is it hard loving black women? I'm asking that assuming you've been in love before.
I've been in love before.
Okay.
Nah. Why would it be hard? I mean, It's
because hard loving people.
Love is hard in general,
yeah.
right? I mean, black love is probably that adds another layer of complexity on an already tough task or an already tough endeavor. But I think any of my challenges with love has been more my personal struggles than it is because you're black. If you was anything else, it would be so much easier. But why do you have to be black? So
if you were Asian, you'd be connecting right now.
Everything would be cool. So I've never been in a situation personally where I felt like us being black and in love is like just so hard.
Well, for the record, we're not necessarily well, I don't want to like stab you in the heart right in front
of everyone.
we got cut. Is there anything that you think that black women need to learn about loving the black man? That's a big question. Yeah, I realize.
I mean, I think that there's nothing I can think of that y'all need to learn. I mean, I think that the love from a black woman for a black man has evolved and has been through a lot of, I don't want to say turmoil, but just through a lot of difficulties.
What do you mean? Tell us more.
I mean, not to always make everything about race, but when it's a black-on-black relationship, you have to think about dynamics of power struggles and the black man's position in society and,
But like that's exactly the basis of the conversation. I need you to go there. Like, get in there.
Y'all have to love us harder because there's a lot of things out there that in the world that don't love us at all or don't want us to be around or are working against us. So us dealing with all that difficulty and all the friction and all the challenges that brings to us in our everyday life can create a lot of frustration and create a lot of just people that are not in their right state of mind.
So why should black women bear the brunt of the responsibility of dealing with that? Why shouldn't you get help and please, again, this is not an attack, but why shouldn't black men be responsible to get help to fix that stuff and then come to black women whole?
I think a lot of black men just don't realize that kind of trauma and that type of emotional state is where they are. We either compartmentalize it or we don't deal with it directly or we look at it passively or we're strong, we want to be the alpha males, we want to be the breadwinner, we want to be all the above. So we don't really have time to deal with our feelings and deal with things that are not coming together mentally for us and not really having the perspective to just sit down and think and to understand how to process your feelings, understand how to deal with what's going through your head, or if you're having challenges at work or with anything that's happening in life. And that usually manifests as either frustration or y'all are on the receiving end of conversations or discussions or words or just acts of physical activity that are may not prove that I love you or that we're in this together. And so when I said earlier, the black woman has had to deal with loving us and going through that and dealing with all those difficulties on top of maintaining households and dealing with other problems that would resolve or come up in a relationship. It's a lot. So I just think a lot of that is really us as men, and I don't know if this is a black man thing or just a male thing in general, but the traditional cliches of we don't really deal with our emotions, or we don't like to talk, or we don't think we need therapy, or we don't think we need to be that transparent because we're the man and we're strong and we can never be bold because I'm a man.
Yes. I don't know why.
You want to beat on your chest and you want to be that alpha male with the testosterone, but even being able to have that type of vulnerability to break down those walls is tough. And so I think that manifests as what that looks like in terms of the dynamics between the man and the woman and having to deal with those things and y'all having to be more supportive than maybe.
But I think that you're getting you're answering my question without answering it, and I want to go back to it because you're saying stuff that I think would fit in this. What do you think that black women got to do more of or differently to effectively love black men?
A lot of that's probably just having that candid discussion about being a reflection of what you see in us and verbalizing that would be good for us, right? So
but can you handle that though? That doesn't sound like it's gonna be a fun conversation for me.
It's not, but if you want to see that wall broken down, or if you want to see that relationship take that next step, you know, part of that unconditionalness of your bond is you.
I didn't say it was unconditional though. I didn't say that.
That
I didn't say
long-term
that.
commitment that you're signing up for, you know, having crucial conversations, you know. I have to deal with that at work a lot, like crucial conversations and like putting yourself in a place where you're okay with having conversations that are uncomfortable because you know that they need to happen in order for someone to either understand what they did wrong or in order for you to get past what someone did wrong. And so
Does this conversation happen before marriage, or does it happen during the lifetime of a relationship?
It should happen during a lifetime. It may not always, but I think part of knowing that you want to marry someone is knowing that you can have those conversations with them. And
Wait, so that belies what you just said. Like, should it happen before marriage then?
oh yeah, I mean, I feel like it should happen a course-to-course relationship. Obviously, you're going to build up that momentum to getting there. Like, you're not going to be 3 months in and having, like, you know, fireside chats about mental health and stuff. You might, but
We're not that much further in than we're having fireside chats about relationships.
But, you know, this is probably not the norm, you would
Yeah,
say.
this is also being filmed, so
Exactly,
for
so,
edification of other people, which I hope does.
Yeah, so there's a gradual build there. I think the excitement and fun about relationships are you kind of get to go through those humps and bumps and understand and see that growth and see that pattern of development between the two. And so you'll get there, but it's going to take some time. If it happens. But it should happen before you're like committed legally.
So I was watching the conversation between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin, which is on YouTube. You guys can find it. I'll link it in the description box. But it's a lengthy conversation. But in the second half, because it's like broken into 2 parts. In the second half, they have this conversation where Nikki Giovanni, who's a poet, and she's 28 in this conversation, which is filmed in 1971, and you know, she says to James Baldwin, who's like in his 50s and is like a renowned writer of like all kinds anyway, we all know who he is, but the point is she's 28 and he's a generation ahead of her, right? And so she's saying that, like, I don't understand why black women, I think this is probably more applicable to women in general, but since we gonna have a conversation about black women and black men. I don't understand why black women get the worst of you guys. Like, you go out and you'll smile for the white man at work. You'll smile for the people on the street, and then you come home and you give us the worst of you, like the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, God forbid. You know, you're not there for your kids as much, or you're not, you're just not present. And this isn't, I'm hoping, like, obviously we're not married, so you're not bringing me home anything, but, like, you know, do you understand the sentiment that's expressed there? What do you think about what she said?
I think for the most part, now that I reflect on that conversation that they had, I agree with a lot of what she was saying. It's just funny that was, what, 50 years ago? And a lot of that is kind of still relevant to this day.
So relevant.
Those dynamics. So if those structural things that were a problem in the 1970s may have gotten better where we are now in 2020, but you can say a lot of those dynamics in terms of, like, frustrations at work, or not being where you want to be, or not having the income you want, or the education level you want, or dealing with other family stuff. A lot of those dynamics still exist, and those still exist because of structural things in society in terms of how we are here in the United States. And so, unfortunately, a lot of those things that she said in the 70s are still true, because a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world is still happening. And so,
what do we do about that? What do I do about that as a black woman? What am I supposed to do about that? In context of this, like, if this is a thing and you're going out and you're, like, doing best you can in a dog-eat-dog world, especially against black men, and knowing that I'm doing my thing in a dog-eat-dog world against black women too, what does that mean for the way we relate to one another in the context of our household?
I think that is important just to be mindful of at all times. Like, I think even when Nikki and James were having that conversation, you could see some of his like initial reactions were like he kind of didn't really agree with her, but then as she broke it down, she broke it down. She gave it to him very clearly and very concisely and very directly. And I think even him having that aha moment of that's real talk. Like I see that conversation now as a black man, and I'm like I think about those kind of things when I'm having conversations or trying to develop relationships and thinking about that. I don't want to be that person. Like, in order to break a cycle, you have to be aware of the cycle, and that it's a real thing, and that's something you want to, not perpetuate. And so, I think just having the right state of mind is part of it. We're not perfect, so it could happen. Like, I could have had a crappy day at work, and I'm coming home, and I'm bringing crap to you, and, I'm being frustrated and not being my best self at home when
vice versa,
all the work stuff should be at work. But, we're human, we have breakdowns, and, our ability to kind of withstand that and still put on the smiling face and still be positive. And so I think a lot of that's just, again, being mindful about it and recognizing that. And as a black man, I want to break the cycle of, past cyclical things that have happened because of, whatever circumstances that have happened or whatever circumstances exist. You want to feel empowered that you can break that cycle because you know that that's a problem. If I got a hole in the back of my shirt and I'm walking around and I don't want to change my shirt because I like the shirt, if no one tells me that, hey, you got a hole in the back of your shirt, now I know that if I continue to choose to wear that shirt and just rock it like no problems, then that's on me. But once somebody brings that to light and I understand that, and now I know that, I can make better decisions based on kind of having a better picture of the whole situation and circumstance and that historical context. So that's a big piece of moving beyond that and starting to fixing that in terms of making that better or not repeating those same cycles generation in and generation out.
So in light of that, where are you on therapy for black men? And don't give me just the pat answer. Where are you specifically on therapy as it relates to yourself?
I have not personally taken the leap to get therapy or seek out therapy.
Haven't you?
That's a good question. I've been more open to it than I ever have before. I listen to podcasts and a lot of other media, and there's a lot of, I think a lot of breakthroughs in terms of not just black people, but black men in general being more open to that and talking about that publicly and kind of destigmatizing it. I think that,
Is there a stigma in your mind?
I feel like there is. Yeah.
What's the stigma?
I mean, I feel like when you're thinking about therapy, something wrong with you, you need to go to therapy. Like, it's like a...
But something wrong with you need to go...
Well, yeah.
Not you.
We all got
no,
stuff
definitely
wrong with
you.
us.
Me too. But
I've definitely got my flaws, but I think it's just that stigma of, like, something is really wrong with you, you got to go to therapy. Like, you weren't strong enough to figure it out yourself. And nobody really wants... Men, at least, we want to be strong enough to figure things out because...
You can't cure your cancer.
You can't.
You'll go to a doctor. Exactly. Some of y'all won't, but I mean, you can't. I mean, as a medical professional, you can't always fix what ails you. You gotta go under and completely trust that another human being can fix what's wrong with you.
But also, mental health is like that. It's usually an undetermined or undiagnosed kind of problem, right? Like, if I got a heart problem that could kill me,
you
I
got a brain tumor.
If I got
somebody
cancer,
gotta go get it.
I have to get treatment.
Yeah,
it's like, mental things or things that you're dealing with psychologically that typically you seek therapy for to try to overcome or to try to deal with. Those things kind of chip away at you slowly. They're not an immediate, imminent threat typically.
Unless it's like an undiagnosed
illness. Yeah. But for the most part, those are things that you feel like you can maintain and like deal with and just figure it out. I'll figure this out.
But what if everyone else doesn't feel that way? Because you're giving them, like, you're coming home and you're giving them, like, the worst of you. And for me, like, to Nikki's point, like, that as a black man who's faced adversity outside the home, you know what it means to be oppressed. And then to go and oppress people in your own, like, where you live. How do you look at... I don't know, for me, it's I feel like that's really selfish to say, like, oh, I should be able to figure out this thing that's causing me to, mishandle emotionally the people that I'm supposed to be closest to. And, you know, to not pursue assistance in any way. And especially, like, as a man, isn't that, you know, kind of what you guys are built to do, to, like, pursue the best for your family by any means necessary? Mm-hmm. And isn't therapy, like, from women's perspective, like, isn't therapy a part of pursuing the best for your family by any means necessary? And to me, that's, like, as important. Bring your full check home, and you know, making sure that you're protecting us from whatever it is that's outside that seeks to harm us, that seeks to break us apart. Like, to me, like, taking care of yourself physically, like, making sure you're not, like, becoming a person on, you know, My 600 Pound Life, or, like, making sure that, you know, you're not clogging your arteries, or making sure that you're not mentally abusing the children, you know, like that. Those things, to me, those things are equally important. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I guess that's my frustration in with black men and therapy, that you guys feel like, well, this is mental, so I have more space to deal with it. And I'm just like, we are the worst people. I mean, the collective, we, like, are the worst people to deal with our own mental dysfunction, because since you're in it, you can't see the hole in the back of your shirt. You can only see, you know, from this way going forward. And if I, as a woman, tell you, hey, you got a hole in the back of your shirt, and your response to me is, bish, you know, like, that doesn't serve either of us, because I'm punished for telling you, hey, there's this deficiency, and you know, not only have reacted negatively, but also decided to continue forward with the hole in your shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not monolithic, right? So there's all varying ends of the spectrum.
Of course.
I would say most of us are on the spectrum of, at least now, I think the stigma of it, or even the access to it, like, now there's apps, there's numbers you can call.
There's black therapists.
There's, like,
because that's, like, not, it wasn't a thing 10 years ago.
Exactly. So if I want to talk to somebody, I want to talk to somebody that at least looks like me, who I feel like can relate to me. So I think a lot of those changes have made it more accessible and made it more.
Charlemagne talks about
it all the time.
It's huge.
And, you know, he's destigmatizing. He's wrote a great book on, you know, his journey with mental health and going through therapy and understanding how that has impacted his life and being better and wanting to fix a lot of those things. So again, I don't have any opposition to it. Have I done it? No. Could I use it? I'm sure I could. Do you feel like anyone could use therapy? Like, that's just the universal concept of, we all have some type of internal struggle or some type of thing that we're dealing with that we could use a neutral party to talk to and work through it. Anybody?
I do, but I think there's levels to it. I think some of what we deal with person to person can be dealt with by the mental energy that I think black men think that they can apply to stuff. And I don't want to be belittling in any way by saying it that way. But I do think that there is to me a tipping point where this is not something you can handle yourself, you know. And one of those things that I don't think that we have fully processed through as black folks, period, is some of the trauma associated with being black in America. Like, you can't, like, okay, maybe you can learn how to deal with grief over time, right? Because it's something everybody will inevitably go through. Somebody that you love or somebody close is going to die. You got to deal with it, right? And you may need help to deal with that and process it, right? But grief is kind of a natural process that hopefully you can, like, let take its course. But, like, if you have a mental illness, or if you are physically or emotionally abusive to the people in your family, you need help to deal with that. You can't think your way out of that stuff. You can't, like, the moment, you know, I'm hoping, I'm trying to, like, I'm crying out in my brain to the black men at large, like, the moment someone confronts you and says, we think this is an issue with you, and you've heard it from more than one person, like, dang, this is a serious thing. Like, you know, you're bleeding out physically, you know what I'm saying? Your tooth hurts, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go seek out a professional because I feel there's a problem. Or if somebody has said, that don't look right, that don't act right, that don't sound right. Like, once that's identified for you, it's not something that you, obviously if you could make it better, you would be doing that, right? Like if it's something that's been called attention to and that you've been thinking about and people are saying it's not getting better, like at that point it's not just that everybody needs therapy, it's that you specifically need therapy, as a, like that one individual needs therapy at that point. And for me in my life, there have been distinct moments in time where I've gotten therapy and I've learned that I, as a person, I think we have a family history of depression, and I don't know if you know it now. And I think part of our regular maintenance is having a person on call to check in with. But part of understanding that that's the thing that I needed to do started with going to a person who said, hey, you know, you're struggling with this, that, and the other thing. It might be helpful if you can have a person to regularly. It's like going to my GP, right? Like I'm not just gonna not go to the doctor for 6 years. I'm probably gonna go at least check in, you know, my annual well woman checkup for my OB-GYN or whatever. I'm gonna check in with you at least once a year. And, you know, if things are worse, I'm gonna check in more frequently. If things are better, maybe, you know, it'll just be that once. But, you know, in that sense, we all need someone to check in with to make sure that we're firing on all cylinders. And I know I've had this conversation at length with my mother about therapy, and I thought that was a generational thing, but I don't think that it is exclusively a generational thing. I think it's a black people thing, and I think it's a masculine thing. Like you guys tend to be more resistant to, you know, having conversations with people about your feelings. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, I want to say, like, thank you so much for doing this, because I know, I'm not an easy person to talk to like that. But also, these are super deep conversations about, like, stuff that really matters. And, you know, I recognize that there is a risk in having this conversation when we're having it in context of, like, our relating to one another. So I appreciate your candor in this context. Is there anything that, you know, you thought that we would cover that we haven't covered, or that you want to cover?
What are we missing? Nah, I appreciate you.
We haven't talked about sex.
We haven't talked about sex. That needs a whole nother half an hour with something stronger than wine. We might have to pull the whiskey out for that topic, because that'll be a fun topic. No, I mean, I think this is a good conversation. I appreciate your perspective. It's funny because I think one of the things about our dynamic is you've done a lot of stuff that I haven't done. I probably have done a lot of stuff you haven't done as well, but just in talking about, like, having discussions and talking about therapy and being open to those kind of things, like, I feel like you're well more experienced in those areas than I am, and so I appreciate just learning that from you, and, like, you know, that opens me up to want to be a better man and want to think about these things. You make me want to be a better man.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
You know, it just gives you the perspective of, like, as you're growing and on that journey of learning yourself and learning someone else, this is part of the journey. Like, this is a, you know, I'm taking notes. I'm writing things down here, but growing together is what you want to look forward to, especially in relationships. So I think a lot of these conversations and discussions on some of these topics have shown that, you know, there's opportunities for us to grow together in those areas. So that feels good. So hopefully I represented well for the men out there. So hopefully I didn't say nothing too incriminating or.
Hey man, you gotta be yourself. And, like, the reason I wanted to do this, in addition to, like, having it be the black man, black woman dynamic, I think it's also super important to, like, mark progress. And I'm open to, like, to being wrong about this, and, like, watching this video in, like, 5 years and being like, ooh, like, that was so bad. Like, you did not know at all what was going down. But yeah, we're marking this time, you know, at the, God willing, the tail end of a pandemic, and
fingers crossed,
meeting in a pandemic and then
they're gonna write books about us.
I'm telling you, man, this is
all those pandemic
uncharted territory, except for, like, 1918.
Yeah.
Right. So
when they had the Spanish flu.
Yeah. So I mean, thanks again. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna try and do more of this, but definitely let us know if there's anything that resonated with you or anything that you disagreed with in the comment section below. Thumbs up if you like this video because it helps me know like what else I should be making. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.